What's up, Internet? You're tuning in episode 116 of the FlipScreen Games Podcast, a weekly video game podcast where two best buds from different nations come together to discuss the wide world of video games. I'm your host, Pete and Bessie, joined as always by my very good friend and co-host, Mr. Steven Radford.
Hello, hello.
Hello, Steve. It is a big week on the show because, of course, the Game Awards nominees have been revealed, and I think there are probably a lot of gamers out there who are maybe a little upset that their favorite game was not nominated for Game of the Year this year. What do you think?
Was your favorite game nominated? Are we gonna find out? Have
I
you
mean, I
decided
can't
that yet?
I can't just be out here telling you what my Game of the Year is
Oh,
already,
okay.
Steve. You
Okay.
can't. What do you say? What do you mean? You know,
I
the
tried.
Game
I
of the Year.
tried.
You're the one who lobbied for Game of the Year to happen in January on this website. I can't be talking about it
Hey,
in November.
it still makes sense to me because there's still games yet to come out, you know?
I need the time to catch up, frankly. Some of these nominees are some of my, potential contenders, right? They're contenders for the top 10. They're contenders. I haven't finished them all yet. So some of these we gotta take our time with, you know?
Some of the ones in the GOTY category at the Game Awards.
Who's to say? Who's to say, Steve? Yeah, maybe I haven't touched them all yet. But so I figured we'd take some time to talk about that today. I figure we'll go through the nominees. We'll talk about who was nominated, who was not nominated. And then I figure as we go, maybe you and I play some bets. Maybe we see who we think is going to win each category. And maybe you and I get a little good old fashioned pizza bet going here,
Yes, and I need to win this one because I looked at the predictions and I'm probably not going to win that one. So I lost Jeopardy, so I need to win this one to like save my honor for the year.
I love that.
Otherwise, 2023 was a wash.
I love that, for you, this is like your last chance to save
It
face.
is.
And for me, it's like, I'm just like, it's that image that Asobi shared in the Discord of that guy just covered in gold medals, and I'm like, yeah, I'll take another one. What's another category I can clean up? Like the year that the Americans, because the Russians didn't show up and we just won every single event, That's how it feels for this year.
Hey, I showed up. I just didn't know anything. That's the problem, Well, my predictions were like so niche and like honed in on specific things. If I'd have made them more generic next year, I'm just gonna be like, Nintendo's gonna release a game, and that's gonna be like my prediction, and I'm gonna win everything.
That's the thing. You only go like in the two extremes. You're like, Nintendo will release a video game, or it's like on the third moon in the 6th month of the year, Bungie will revive this series that literally no one had ever heard of until you mentioned it on this podcast, and then they just bring it back, and it's like, I don't know, dude. I feel like that middle range is where you need to try to operate between the absolute guarantees and the most insane thing you could have called.
I think we need to make yours more insane next year. Like, I think that's what it needs to be. It needs to be more ridiculous.
I'm trying to make actual predictions out here, man. You got to try to get these points. You can't just be swinging for the fences. We're going to get to the end of the year, be like, all right, what were our predictions? And we're all 0 for 10. You got to work with me a little bit here. This is what I like.
Well, we'll see. We'll see what 2024 brings.
I like your odds here, though. Multiple choice.
I think if this was if I hadn't have pushed to get rid of the half points, the like partial points, it wouldn't have been such a wash for me because I'd have had a few half points on there. But we're not going over the current predictions in this episode. We're going to make some other ones.
We're going to make some new ones today. I'm just saying, you wanted to get rid of the partial points because you're like, oh, it'll make it. It's like, I'm just saying, you could have had points on the board. You could have had points.
I know.
It's more fun. I mean, come on, guys. You know what? It's fine. We're going to talk about that in a couple of weeks. Today, we're going to make some new predictions. We're going to make some new memories, Steve. So let's jump into it, and we're going to go through. We're not going to do every single category because there are a couple categories. Like, let's be real. We don't know anything about esports. We don't need to talk about the esports categories. We're not going to talk about content creator of the year. We're going to focus on the major games categories. So that's how many we got, Steve, on our list?
25. There's 25 categories. We're doing all the main game
25
categories along with like a couple of others like best adaptation, accessibility, things like that. But for the most part, it's like best direction, best indie, best mobile, those
So we're
ones.
gonna go through them in kind of reverse order. We're gonna start with game of the year because I want to start the conversation there, right? Because I think the
Me
games
too, yeah.
that were nominated this year are, I mean, I think mostly or all, right? To be fair, great games. But I think that there are definitely a few surprises for me in terms of games that made the list, games that didn't make the list. And I think I'd like to start there before we get into our predictions. So let's take a look, right? Because the list as it stands right now, we've got Alan Wake 2, Baldur's Gate 3, Marvel's Spider-Man 2, Resident Evil 4, Super Mario Bros. Wonder, and Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom.
Yeah.
Quite a list, right? But I mean some notable omissions on this list, Steve.
Yeah, there are some noble omissions. I mean, I guess chiefly Starfield's nowhere to be found. Diablo 4 nowhere to be found.
Final
We
Fantasy 16, Jedi
Yeah,
Survivor, couple games
I
that I
mean,
think in other years probably would have been on this list,
possibly.
right?
I mean, they don't even make, like, the top 25 on Metacritic. I'm looking at the top 25 games of the year on Metacritic, and I'm surprised that, you know, the comparing the list, and I know Metacritic's not perfect, right? But the least highly ranked game on the Game Awards, Game of the Year list surprised me. Which do you think it is? Which do you think is the worst ranked on Metacritic?
Like which game has the lowest score of these
Yeah.
nominees?
Yeah.
Spider-Man
Yeah, yeah, Spider-Man, with a ninth score of
with a
90.
90, right? Which
Yeah,
is
so
wild.
Spider-Man's got a 90.
I bet you if we go
Um,
back to almost every other year in the last like 10 years that there are several games below 90 that got nominated for game of the year.
there definitely are, yeah. I had to look back because I was surprised that Resident Evil 4 made it on the list because we had a
Me
discussion
too.
there it was a few weeks ago. It's just like, well, with a banger year like this, how can you really justify putting a remake on here? Like, why is Resident Evil 4 on here, but Metroid Prime's not? They're both remakes of the same game. I guess you could argue that Metroid Prime is maybe more of a remaster than a remake, but I think it is in a new engine. They've obviously not done as much as they did with the Resident Evil 4 remake. But I went back and I had a look because I was curious, did Resident Evil 2 remake ever make it onto the list? And it did in 2019.
Did, yeah.
And that year, Disco Elysium got snubbed for Game of the Year, even though it picked up the most awards that year. It got 4 awards. It won the most awards out of any game, and I think it probably would have picked up Game of the Year that year and beat out Sekiro if it had made it into that Game of the Year list. Personally, so I was surprised by Resident Evil 4. And I'm surprised by Alan Wake because it's been on my radar, but really only in the last couple of weeks it's been like, wow, okay, this game is mega hot, and I probably should be checking this one out.
Yeah, it definitely makes me feel like it's one I should try to get to by the end of the year to see it on this list. And I know it I believe it won the Critics' Choice Award at the Golden Joysticks as well, which is, shows that there's a lot of positivity around it. And like obviously Remedy is a popular studio. They have a good track record and a legacy for putting out games that compete for game of the year, but I am kind of surprised to see it on this list, and with what a stacked year it was. And, I have heard from some people that um, the end doesn't necessarily live up to the rest of the experience, but I guess your mileage may vary on something like that. But I mean, I'm really surprised how that Starfield was as polarizing as it was to not be on this list. Like I know you and I were kind of outliers on the higher end in terms of our enjoyment of it, but to see it only get nominated, spoiler alert, to only get nominated in one category is kind of surprising, you know?
Yeah, it's a strange one for me, and there are some other games that have been big this year that haven't made it that are in other categories. Pikmin 4, for example, um,
Pikmin's at
Hi-Fi
least in like
Rush.
2 or 3 though, right? Because it's in family and it's also in best strategy and sim, I think. So it's like it's got a couple at least at bat.
I guess where else do you put Starfield? What else does it really excel in a
Yeah.
specific category? I think on the whole, it's a great game, and it deserves to be up for best RPG. But does it? Is it the best game direction? Is it the best art direction? Is it the best score? I'd argue that it's not. It's not. It doesn't
Yeah,
deserve
I
to be
think
in
you're
any of
right.
those categories.
Yeah, I guess the big bummer for me here is I wish RE4 was not on this list. I would much rather see Starfield or Final Fantasy or one of
Me
these
too.
other
Even
original
Street Fighter
games.
6, like, it got a 92, and Street Fighter is it because it's a fighting game, it doesn't get considered for
Yeah,
Game of the Year?
I think that's part of it, right? Is I think that we've talked about how, like, I think fighting games deal with this. I think racing games deal with this. I think sports games deal with this, where it's almost like it doesn't matter how good you are, because there's this kind of, I don't even know what to attribute it to, right? But it's like, I think it's like, well, that's for fans of that genre. And if you're not a fighting game person, it doesn't matter how good a fighting game is, you're not gonna go pick it up, right? Whereas, like, I think there's this attitude that there are, standout games in almost every other genre that are like, this is so good that even if you don't mess with this genre, you'll get something out of Alan Wake 2 or Baldur's Gate 3 or whatever, right? Like, I do think that those kinds of games just inherently have a disadvantage when it comes to, you know, um, I mean, let's call it what it is, right? The Game Awards is a popularity contest, and niche genres are going to struggle in a popularity contest. Whereas there is that ability for even something like an indie game that maybe, generally has a smaller audience, can hit on a certain level, right? And break into the mainstream, right? And you have games like, something like Journey, or like It Takes Two, 2 years ago or whatever, that, you know, um is able to kind of be that breakout hit in the same way that like an indie darling is in film, right? And you got to think, a lot of times the game that wins game of the year, right, is not always the most popular game. It's the, like, least hated game. It's the game that, like, the most people voting have, generally positive feelings about. It's why, I was joking about it with Max last week, I think offline, where I was like, I think there's a really good chance that, like, um, something like Super Mario Brothers Wonder could easily be our game of the year this year, just because it's the game that the most people voting will have played and have a positive opinion about. Even if it's nobody's number one game, if it's on everybody's list, it's gonna rise to the top, right? And I think that's why, you see stuff like Marvel Spider-Man and Baldur's Gate and Alan Wake and Mario and right? It's like, it's either the games that cast the widest net and captured the most people's imagination and then had that staying power throughout the year, or the recent games that are on everybody's mind and that everybody is still in, right? And like is still, you know, um experiencing that kind of wow factor of that shiny new toy.
Yeah, I mean, I do wonder about that with Alan Wake, and maybe after it settles for a few more weeks, do people still feel the same about it? I'm sure they probably do, because Control was phenomenal, and I'm
Sure.
sure Alan Wake 2 is also phenomenal. I also, as much as it is a popularity contest, I do wonder how much the public vote actually sways things, because they only attribute 10% of the vote cast to the public vote. 90% is the voting jury.
Yeah,
So
I don't even consider like the audience vote as a major factor. I'm more talking about like the journalists that vote on it, right? Where it's like I think, as just a base example, right? Probably every person that is voting for the Game Awards has touched Zelda, right? Has played it to some degree, right? Mario, Spider-Man even, right? These are
mhm.
all games that or Baldur's Gate probably too, right? Because it had that huge moment. These are games that everybody has touched. Whereas, like, there are folks that are on this voting body that do not play fighting games, right? And do not
But
have an
I would
opinion
imagine
about.
that the outlets, right? Do you know how it works? Do the outlets vote as a single entity?
So the jury, like the voting jury, is made up of a bunch of different outlets. Like if you go to the Game Awards
Yeah,
website, they have
there's
a
like,
list of
say,
like who's on there, and it's like
yeah, so they've got like Game Informer, MinMax, Digital Trends, GameSpot, Giant Bomb, but do they vote as one? So like,
no,
is
each
okay,
outlet has multiple representatives, and they all get to cast their own votes.
Okay, interesting. Because I would have thought that like Polygon has voted Tears of the Kingdom as their game of the year, so they put that in as game of the year
Yeah,
on
no.
at
So
the Game
it
Awards.
would be like if you and like say that FlipScreen was invited to vote, right? And we were like, okay, everybody that works at FlipScreen is going to vote. That would mean I would get a vote, you would get a vote, Max would get a vote, right? And that all gets cast. So like, if you are like for us, right? Like, we're not racing game people. So we might not vote in that category. And that's okay. You're allowed to skip categories and not cast a ballot as well. So that's the other thing you got to think about is like there are types of games like that that I just think a really big portion of the audience that's voting has probably not
Makes
played.
the fighting games really, really disadvantaged because I'm not playing Street Fighter. I'm just terrible at that kind of game.
Exactly, right? And it doesn't matter that it's a 92 for the folks that are going to play it to you, right? And it's like, that's cool, right? But it's like, that means that's why it gets relegated to best fighting game category and not game of
Mhm.
the year, right? Even if it is one of the best games of the year, right? Critically, in terms of where it ranked or whatever, yeah, it's 2 points higher than Spider-Man, but I mean, there are magnitudes of millions more people that played Spider-Man than Street Fighter,
I
and
wonder if
that's,
that's true because of the number of platforms that Street Fighter's on versus Spider-Man.
I mean, I I don't want to speak out of turn because it's also like I think if you looked at it right now, I bet you Street Fighter is ahead because Spider-Man's newer. But
Mhm.
I don't know. Fighting games sell really well, but I
I'm
don't
gonna
know.
look on SteamDB to see where the sales figures are at.
Yeah, give me a benchmark if you got one.
So I mean, there's only 6,000 people playing it right now, but it had a high of 22,000 concurrents. I don't know how you see how many bought the game. I'm sure that used to be here, right?
Well, I don't know, but let's keep the conversation rolling. I don't want to get dead air here. But if you can figure that out, we'll see. But
Okay, so owner estimations are between half a million and 2 million on Spice by various different records. That's just
okay.
on PC.
Hmm.
I don't know. I'm sure Spider-Man was like 2 million in a weekend, right?
Yeah, I mean it broke a record right away, right?
Yeah.
So it's like it's I don't know. But I think within the voting block, right? Like I definitely think that there's a higher degree of gamers that are gonna play and review a, you know, AAA third person action adventure game, right? Versus a fighting game. Just because think about how many people there are that are games pundits at these outlets that we were just rattling off that are not fighting game people, you know?
Mm,
A lot of outlets have like one person that's a fighting game person,
if
you
that,
know?
I know they were a lot of the people that were first to be laid off when it's like
Sure.
journalism rolls around. Let's get rid of the esports teams. Let's
There's a
go.
reason that Sifu was nominated for best fighting game last year, right? Like that's what I'm talking about, That's
Yeah.
not me passing a value judgment on fighting games or the people that play them or anything like that. It's just like
Well, you play them, right? You played Mortal Kombat 1
I
this
played
year.
Mortal Kombat. I loved it this year, right? Like that was a great game. So, yeah, it's just a matter of what speaks to the bigger chunks of audiences when you're doing a popular vote. A popular vote is going to make it a popularity contest.
Yeah. How are
Right.
you feeling about the Game Awards in general? Are you buzzing for them this year? I just it kind of I just was surprised that this was out today. It
Yeah,
kind of came out of nowhere. I was like, "Oh, okay."
it's like I feel like it snuck up on me too, and I think it's just because like this year has been like such a whirlwind, and like you and I both have been busy and like struggling to um like get through all the games we want to play, let alone getting to like the end of the year, like feeling like we're already at the game of the year conversation. I'm like, you got to be kidding me, like where I haven't even finished the games I want to play yet.
Yeah.
And I mean, I finished a lot of them, right? I've already finished like double digit games this year, but like in a year where this many games come out, right? Like it's tough. There are a couple really big releases that I was desperate to get around to, and I just have not had the time. So like,
I'm
I don't
guessing
know.
you've only finished I'm guessing you only finished 1 of the Game of the Year
On this list,
nominees? Yeah. Maybe
mm,
2?
two, yeah, and I'm
Yeah,
I'm gonna
I've
finish
done
a
1.
third soon. I think we'll see.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna pick up Alan Wake. I'm struggling to get back into Baldur's Gate because it's slipped away from me, and, like, I forgot what I'd configured all the buttons to do and, like,
Yeah.
what I'm casting, and,
I'm,
like, it's
like,
just the
low
whole
key
thing.
thinking about re-rolling and, like, starting over just because like,
Yeah,
I
I have been
didn't
as
get
well.
that far in, you know, and I think I could catch back up to where I was pretty quickly if I wanted to, but we'll see. I definitely am gonna get back to that one and put more time into it because it's, like, such a dream game for me, you know, but, like, I just kinda got pulled away from it, because
Yeah.
there's so many other releases, and, like, I was excited about Starfield, you know, it was hitting at that moment, it was what I was in the mood for, and I think now that I'm a little bit, you know, now I've got some more, time away from it, I've been having that pull to, like, wanna do something that's a little bit deeper and nerdier like Baldur's Gate, you know, because 'cause I've just wrapped up a couple games that were a little bit easier.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, I think I will get through most of the games on this list. I would like to try to play Alan Wake 2, but, like, obviously time's a factor. I'm not a big horror guy, so it's not one I'm gonna necessarily prioritize, but, it feels like a game I should try, you know?
Yeah, I don't know. That's a tough one, right? If you've got limited time, do you want to spend it
Yeah.
on games that you know you're going to enjoy and you really want to get back to and finish? Or do you try something that's
Or do you
not even a
challenge
genre that
yourself?
you would like and you kind of just go, "Oh,
Yeah.
I'm gonna give it a go because it's rated so highly."
I'm not gonna bother with RE4 though, like, I can play that whenever, you know? It's like, I don't like, I've had
Yeah,
since
just
it came
crack
out
the
on
Wii
GameCube to
out,
play
you
that game.
know? Yeah.
I'll play it at some point, maybe, or I won't, I don't know.
You
Resident Evil,
won't,
I just
no,
think is not for me. I've
no.
tried it so many times. I know this one's
Oh,
different, whatever. It's just
yeah.
like, I wanna play the games that came out this year, right? That's my goal. So, if I have time, I'll get to it next year, you know?
Wow, what a slight on Resident Evil 4, games that came out this year. It's nominated for Game of the Year, Pete.
Yeah, I don't know. What do you know, play new games, guys. It's 2023, everybody. Play some new games, okay?
Yeah, and with that, I'm gonna go play Stardew Valley for the 1,000th
You
time.
monster. Are you ready to cast some votes?
I am ready, yeah,
All right, let's
yeah.
do it. Let's start with game of the year, like I said, right? We're gonna start with the main event, and I figure we'll just go through them in the order that they are on the Game Awards website, and that'll be that, right?
So
Um,
we're predicting who we think's gonna win, not who we want to
not
win.
our personal picks. Yeah, if you want to share what your personal pick is, feel free, but we're gonna vote on what we think will win the popular vote.
Yeah,
That's
I'm still not decided on Game of the Year what my personal pick is. I don't think it's on this list personally, so I would probably, out of this bunch, predict Tears of the Kingdom.
I am kind of between Tears of the Kingdom or Baldur's Gate. I feel like Tears of the Kingdom has the disadvantage of it being an older game, right? It's like further back in our memory and there's all this new stuff that you have to compare it against, but like I don't know, I think for my money I still think it's the best game that came out this year, you know?
It was also voted, like, most anticipated 7 years on the row,
Yeah.
so it's like
Mm. But then like Baldur's Gate has had it was such a Cinderella story. Like it came out of nowhere and it like has totally lit the world on fire and I could see people wanting to reward that and give flowers to the new guy and not the legacy
well, and
vote.
it being an indie as well.
But I also think that Zelda has the broader appeal factor because Baldur's Gate 3 is a more, you know, it's a game for a specific type of gamer. And like I think even if you like it and appreciate it, it might not be the game that
Yeah,
you
but look back at how well, Disco did in
yeah,
2019, won
yeah.
most awards, you know, it's a very similar game in terms of
That's the thing. I
the
could see it
way you
winning the most
play it.
awards though and not winning game of the year still.
Yeah, it's a tough one. There's a few I don't think will win. I don't think Mario's gonna win, I don't think Resident Evil 4 is gonna win, and I don't think Spider-Man's gonna win. Alan Wake, Baldur's Gate, or Tears of the Kingdom, I
I
think
don't
it's
think
a
Alan Wake's
toss-up
got it either.
between.
I think it's between
I
those 2.
didn't until it had already picked up some awards, and it was
The
just like, "Oh,
joystick, yeah.
okay.
I'm gonna say Tears of the Kingdom.
Okay. Tears of the Kingdom."
I think that makes the most sense, personally. All right, next up, we got Best Game Direction. Our nominees are Alan Wake 2, Baldur's Gate 3, Marvel Spider Man 2, Super Mario Bros. Wonder, and The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom.
Am I going first for this?
Yeah, sure.
I think it's Mario Wonder. by a mile for me in terms of creativity, innovation, things they did with that
I'm
game.
giving this one to Baldur's Gate. I think Baldur's Gate will
Okay.
get the nod here because of the depth of its systems and, how much everybody was like really patting them on the back for um the scope of the game, right? And like how much care was put into it. I could see them getting the flowers for this one,
Mhm.
especially if they don't get game of the year. Best game direction is often like a really good consolation prize, you know? It's like, all right, next up is best narrative. It's for outstanding storytelling and narrative development in game. Alan Wake 2, Baldur's Gate 3, Cyberpunk 2077, Phantom Liberty, Final Fantasy 16, and Marvel's Spider-Man 2.
Baldur's Gate 3 for
Yeah,
me.
I could see a case for Final Fantasy 16 because I think its narrative was like kind of the thing it hung its hat on. Um, and that obviously struck a chord with people, but yeah, I think it's Baldur's Gate.
It is the game. The game is the story and how you
Yeah.
tell it and how you uncover it and what you do. Like, that is the whole game.
Yeah, I think you're right. Next up, we got Best Art Direction. This one has Alan Wake 2, Hi-Fi Rush, Lies of P, Super Mario Bros. Wonder, and Legend of Zelda: Tears of the Kingdom.
Man, this is a tough that
Tough
old
one.
category for me. Like, Alan Wake 2 is visually stunning in its hyper realism, but also the way it brings in like surreal and abstract imagery. Hi-Fi Rush is just a gorgeous comic book that I'm moving through. Super Mario Brothers Wonder is just like a trip,
Visual
and
feast.
yeah, and Tears of the Kingdom is. I think for me that's probably the one I discount because it's Breath of the Wild again. I think for me,
I
I'm
think I'm
probably gonna
leaning
go
towards
with
Alan
Mario
Wake 2.
Wonder. You're going with Alan Wake too? Okay,
Yeah.
I'm going with Mario Wonder.
I like Mario as a choice better, but I feel like if again, right? Like I always try to think like, okay, if there are people who were like big Alan Wake supporters and they don't want to give it game of the year because they want to give it to Tears of the Kingdom, what are the other ones that they would be like, oh, this, that, like, and I've heard
Yeah.
the conversation around the animation and the art direction and everything with Alan Wake. So I could see that being its consolation prize. We'll see. Next up, we got Best Score in Music. We've got Alan Wake 2 with composer Petri Alanko, Baldur's Gate 3 with composer Borislav Slavov, Final Fantasy 16 with composer Masayoshi Soken, Hi-Fi Rush audio director Shizuchi Kobori, and Legend of Zelda: Tears of the Kingdom composed by Nintendo Sound Team.
Wow. Okay. So they're back here with the all the credits again, like with the Mario movie.
I'm gonna guess Final Fantasy 16 for this one. I think Final Fantasy, like, obviously has a lot of the music is something that is regularly remembered and celebrated for it, and I could see this being its consolation prize if people aren't gonna give it
Mm.
any its flowers anywhere else. I don't see it winning any other categories, and I could see
Might
this
win
being
best RPG, maybe. No, it's not going to. Is it? Let's get into Baldur's
probably
Gate.
not, right? It's probably gonna be
Uh,
Baldur's Gate.
I haven't like the music in Tears of the Kingdom was so unmemorable in the same way that it was in Breath of the Wild for me, and I feel the same way about Baldur's Gate. I wasn't really honed into the music, but maybe that's because I'm playing on the Steam Deck and it doesn't have the same effect. Hi-Fi Rush for me though is a rhythm game. I was like in with the
Totally.
music, I was in with the beat, so I think I'm going to give it to Hi-Fi Rush.
I think that's a good guess. I think if it's not Final Fantasy, that would have been my guess. All right. Best audio design, we have Alan Wake 2, Dead Space, Hi-Fi Rush, Marvel Spider-Man 2, and Resident Evil 4. This one I'm
Wow,
gonna say Hi-Fi Rush.
another remake. Yeah, I'm going for Hi-Fi Rush again. Really, really great sound design. I mean, I'm surprised this is usually where Forza cleans up on some audio design on how great the cars sound. No Forza, no Gran Turismo here, so interesting to see.
Next up, we got Best Performance. This is for like the best leading person, right? Usually leading person. We've got Ben Starr from Final Fantasy 16, Cameron Monaghan, I think that's how you say it, right? Monaghan from Star Wars Jedi Survivor, Idris Elba from Cyberpunk 2077, Phantom Liberty, Melanie Liebert from Alan Wake 2, Neil Newborn from Baldur's Gate 3, and Yuri Lowenthal from Marvel Spider-Man 2.
Okay, you've played more of these games than me. You decide, because I ain't got a
I
clue.
am torn because I feel like I could see Idris Elba winning it just because it's like, we like Idris Elba.
This
Let's give him a
is
Game
Idris Elba,
Award.
yeah.
You know, like he's one of those types of celebrities that people are just like, I just like him. So I would like to vote
I
for him.
love him. He's great. I've just
Um,
rewatched The Wire because of him.
Neil Newbon, like Baldur's Gate 3 got so much attention for how good the voice acting was. I could see that being the move.
Okay, who does he play
I
in
think
Baldur's
he's
Gate 3? Is he my favorite guy?
give me his name.
No, Astarion.
Yeah, that's what I thought. He's Asterion.
Mhm.
And it's like he's like kind of one
Oh,
of
no, he is my favorite one. Yeah, I love him. He's so funny
he's
in the
like one of the
game.
breakout characters,
Yeah,
right?
he's
So it's
great.
like I could easily see it being him because that is the character that, like, or that game had so much attention on the voice acting. I I would love to see it go to Yuri Lowenthal because I think what he did with Spider-Man was so good, like having to play the different, kind of versions of Peter. Um, I would love to see him get his flowers for that. I just don't know if that's gonna happen. So I'm gonna guess Neil Newborn and Baldur's Gate 3 take it this year. That's my guess.
Okay, Neil Newborn, BG3. I'm gonna guess Idris just for something different.
Okay. All right. Next category is innovation in accessibility. We've got Diablo 4, Forza Motorsport, Hi-Fi Rush, Marvel Spider-Man 2, Mortal Kombat 1, and Street Fighter 6.
I genuinely, unfortunately, don't know of any of the new accessibility features that were brought into these games. I
I
know
don't feel
Hi-Fi
like
Rush
I remember
had
any of them getting a ton of press, which is usually like how I gauge what I think is
mm.
going to win is like what is the thing people are thinking about.
So
My
I do
guess is
remember Forza
Forza?
actually. They added sign language support to Forza
That
Motorsport for
was
the
in
first
this one,
time.
huh?
So you could like see people signing to you in either British or American Sign Language for the first time. Hi-Fi Rush, they make contingencies if you can't hear with the rhythm, you can still do it in the beat. The whole level is going in time with the beat, so that
That's
was
cool.
the game itself, like kind of shows you without you having anything on screen, which is cool. Um,
Spider-Man, I think, is interesting because I think there is a case to be made there because there's an extremely prominent deaf character who's like the first character I've ever seen in a video game speak in ASL. And it's like a
that's
major part of
cool.
the game, but that's not exactly an accessibility feature. And I don't know that the feature set is anything that much more impressive than what's been done in the other PlayStation first party stuff that's come out recently, right? Like that's kind of
There's
been
no
their
real
bread and
innovation there, which is what the
yeah. So
category
it's
is.
like, arguably, I think that there's a lot of innovation in terms of, like, what's presented with Haley as a character, but I don't know.
Does that so it's recognizing software and or hardware that's pushing the medium forward by adding features, technology, or content to help games be
Right.
played,
So
and
I
I
would
don't think that really does help the
to
game be
me, it sounds
played.
like Forza's the one. I think the in-game sign language as an option seems like the biggest thing.
Yeah, that's I think where I'm landing as well, like, being able to just have someone sign to you is a huge
I don't think
innovation.
any other game's done that ever, right? So
Mhm.
that's something. Okay, Games for Impact, which is a thought-provoking game with a pro-social meaning or message. So we've got A Space for the Unbound, Chance of Sinar, Goodbye Volcano High, Chia, Terra Nil, and Venba.
You played
My,
any of these?
I haven't played any of them yet. A couple of them were on my radar. My guess is Venba because of all
Okay.
these games, it is the one that I feel like it had a pretty strong like marketing push prior to release, and then when it actually came out, I feel like it reviewed pretty well and I heard people talk about it, whereas these other games, even the ones I was paying attention to, I feel like they kind of came and went. I got to be honest with you. I didn't even know that Goodbye Volcano High had come out. So,
Chaya, the same for me. I know it came out on PlayStation. It's still not out on
yeah.
other platforms, but I think it was, seen as okay, but I
Yeah,
had a
right?
good time
So
when I played Terra Nil. I really enjoyed Terra Nil, but I don't know that it was, I don't know, it's tough. It depends, I guess, what the message you're getting across is as well. I liked the message of Terra Nil that we shouldn't just escape this planet and go somewhere else like certain people want us to do. We should try and make the planet good again. I
Venba's
think I'm
also
gonna
like a very personal story, which I think helps, right? It's got such a specific identity, right? Of like it's a story about like an immigrant family and like relating through food and like and like how meals bring people together, right? And it's like I think that's pretty universal. So that's kind of where I'm at.
yeah. I struggle with this. I'm gonna go with the Space for the Unbound, just because wasn't that the one that had some of the Coffee Talk team on it? So I'm gonna go with that one.
Cool. I'm into that. Okay. So that's games for impact. Next up, we've got best ongoing game. So this is just the best game that's still going. We got Apex Legends, we got Cyberpunk 2077, we got Final Fantasy 14, we got Fortnite, we got Genshin Impact. I'm going to get Cyberpunk 2077 because obviously this is kind of the year that they turned the ship around. Phantom Liberty came out and was successful. It got nominated for best narrative, right? Like I think that
Yeah,
that
has a
game
DLC ever been nominated for, like, a new game as best
I'm not
narrative before?
not to my knowledge, but I'm not certain on that. I can't think of one, but that definitely doesn't mean it didn't hasn't happened.
Maybe, like, maybe Bowser's Fury was there as, like, a
Probably
new game?
I bet you that was in best family game, right?
Mm.
So yeah, with that, it's like I feel like this is its year for everybody to be like, okay, it's good now. Like we you
That
can
I've seen multiple people, including Jason Schreier, post that Cyberpunk is good now.
right.
You know, it's like it was in early access for a while, now it's actually finally playable.
Yeah. So I think with that in mind, I think this is the year that everybody's gonna want to be like, okay, you're like, you guys are cool again. Welcome back to the community.
Mhm.
Best community support. Um, we're gonna skip that one
It
because
it should go to the Destiny 2 team who got laid off
they all
by
got laid
Bungie.
off. All right, next up, we got best independent game. We've got Cocoon, Dave the Diver, Dredge, Sea of Stars, and Viewfinder. I have no idea which one of these is gonna win. I feel like
That's a
Cocoon,
toss-up between 2 for me, I think.
Cocoon, I think has the benefit of being recent, and it's like a recent hit. So like,
And it's also in the top 10 games of the year on Metacritic. It's very well received.
yeah, that's probably the one, right?
That's where I'm landing, but I also think Sea of Stars really was, like, incredibly well received. I
It
just think a
was
lot of people skipped on it because it was another turn-based RPG in a year full of turn-based RPGs. Dredge, I know Max absolutely loved.
Dave the Diver
Dave,
was beloved as well
yeah, beloved, and caused an argument in our Discord as to whether it's even an indie game because of who
because
created
it's
the
not
game.
technically an indie game, right? It's published by a major publisher. Who's the publisher behind it again?
Nexon is the
Right.
owner of Mint Rocket, yeah.
Yeah, so it's like not an indie game.
But it's
But
Dredge because it's published by Team 17. Annapurna, they're a huge company.
here's
Like,
the
does
thing,
that
though.
matter?
Here's the thing. It gets murky, right? Because
Devolver is publicly traded on the New York Stock Exchange.
here's the question, right? The definition of this category is outstanding creative and technical achievement in a game made outside the traditional publisher system. How do you define that? And it's gotten increasingly hard to describe. You know, it's like I think we've hit a full circle moment where indie in gaming is similar to like indie in music, where like
Yeah.
you're describing a vibe more than the fact that you're independent, right? Where it's like you when you think indie game, you think a game made by a smaller team on a tighter budget, and that is probably not a traditional AAA type experience, right? Like that's what you think of when you think of indie. But like,
But some of these, like, you could even consider double A, right? Dave the Diver could be a double A game because it's made by a studio that's it's not
but does that
necessarily a
make it
triple A game.
But what is that? But right, that's where it gets interesting, right? Is like just because you're AAA, you're not independent.
Yeah.
Like technically speaking, the game that should be nominated here is Baldur's Gate 3. That's an indie studio, but 200 people worked on it for 6 years.
And self-published. It's self-published by Larian.
Exactly. That's the only way that you're actually independent, then, right? Because it's like outside of the traditional publisher system. What defines What defines a traditional publisher then?
So I think when I
Is
considered
Annapurna not
the
traditional just because they publish
they made
little
movies.
games? No, they're definitely a publisher. So what does
Yeah.
that mean?
I think the way I looked at it was how they do indie movies. So some studios gone away, made it themselves, and then they've shopped it around and gone, this is what we're making. Do you want to buy the distribution rights of the movie? Or in this case, do you want to publish our game? And I kind of feel like that's what the indie model is. Like we've started at home, we're making it, and here's what it is, and we've put it out to the world. Dave the Diver does not fit that.
Then why isn't
Uh, uh,
Baldur's Gate on this list then, right?
and
Too.
Baldur's Gate should be there, but does that get excluded because it's got a lot of funding from Wizards of the Coast, and it's basically a Dungeons and
Yeah,
Dragons
but that's
game?
outside of the traditional publisher
Yeah,
system.
it
Wizards
is.
of the
Yeah,
Coast is not a traditional publisher. That's an
yeah, that's
angel
true.
investor. It's like, it's like where do you draw that line? And I think the
I know.
answer is that we draw it in a different place every year, and we decide who gets in this category based on vibe a lot more than anything else that's measurable.
Yeah, maybe we need to have like best cozy game or like
You got to blow it
what's that?
out. Yeah, you got to blow
It's
it
got
out.
to
I
be
think a little bit.
something.
Or again, I think you change it and don't have it be best independent game. You make it
Make
best
it best
indie.
indie.
Yeah.
Yeah. I agree with you. I think indie should be like a genre, and it's kind of surpassed that because you can have indie bands and indie artists signed on mainstream labels. They may have
Right.
started out independent, but they quickly grew and
Like
gained popularity, and they became a mainstream artist.
Death Cab for Cutie, right? Is like an indie band. But it's like they're also one of the biggest rock bands of like the last 30 years or whatever, right? They're selling out stadiums for their reunion tour, or not their reunion tour, but the anniversary tour that they just went on, and it was Postal Service reunited. So it's like, what is that? It's all nebulous, right? What we mean when we say indie is it's got it was made by a small team and it's got like kind of a weird art style, right? Like that's what you mean. And it's like that's not what independent is. Larian is genuinely an independent studio. And here they are not getting the nod because vibes, you know?
Yeah, I know.
Which is
It's a tough
fine.
one.
It's totally fine. It's just I think it's funny because we're clearly at that same nexus point that we hit with film and all this other shit, right? Where it's like, what does indie even fucking mean anymore? When everything is, almost everything anyway, has somebody behind it.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, it has to really. Someone's got to pay the bills. Where are you putting your
I'm gonna guess
prediction then?
Cocoon
Okay.
because of the recency bias and the critical acclaim. I think that's a double whammy of like it outscored all these games and it came out more recently than all these games and it was on Game Pass. So I think it probably has a high likelihood
Well,
of
plus
more
who's
people playing
behind
it.
it? Yeah, and who's behind it, right? Someone that will left the developers behind Inside and Limbo, went out on their own, did
And
something
it's an
fresh.
Annapurna joint. Like there are people that follow Annapurna the way that people will like go see like an A21 movie or whatever, where they're like, "Oh yeah, Annapurna, okay, I'll watch it."
Blumhouse. I fall
Yeah,
into that trap. Don't go down that rabbit hole. You'll end up watching some terrible movies.
look, they can't all be winners. All right, so we're both going for Cocoon on that one.
Yeah, I'm going for
All right,
Cocoon on that one.
best debut indie is next.
I'm going for Cocoon again.
It's
So
Cocoon, Dredge, Pizza Tower, Venba, and Viewfinder.
I wanted to play Pizza Tower all year, and I just have not given myself the time.
Same,
This is
yeah.
an homage to Warrior Land, and I really need to play it. I just have never found the time.
I'm gonna give this one to Cocoon too, just I think because I don't think it'll win both of these categories, but it'll definitely win one of them. So I'm gonna just
I kind
hedge
of
my
feel like
bet.
if you should win both of them if you got like if you're gonna win debut indie, maybe you don't win best indie, but if you win best indie, you kind of should win best debut indie too. Like it's the best
Right?
debut and it's the best game, so
Yeah. That's the trouble with this as a category.
yeah.
Okay, next is best mobile game. We're voting on this one, huh? Oof. I don't know. Okay, we got Final Fantasy VII, Ever Crisis, Hello Kitty, Island Adventure, Honkai, Star Rail, Monster Hunter Now, and Terra Nil.
Oh, come on, let's give it to Niantic. They've made the same game a million times, so we'll do Monster Hunter now. They've taken Pokemon and they've Pokemon Go and they put a Monster Hunter skin on it.
I feel like people like Honkai Star Rail. Like I feel like I've heard that name a lot.
I don't know that they do. I feel like the people checked it out because Genshin Impact came out. Like, it came out from the Genshin Impact developers. But I think people like Genshin Impact, and I think they just checked out Honky Star Rail.
Honky Star. Okay. I
Was Final
mean,
Fantasy VII Ever Crisis well received? I don't think it was. Terra Nil I
it's
really
got an 80
enjoyed,
on
but
Metacritic. That's pretty good.
okay.
I don't know.
I always struggle as well with these games
Anybody
that,
played
yeah,
Monster Hunter though? Like,
technically
I haven't heard a single person talk about that game since like the day it came out. You know, like I feel like I remember some like I think Wakahula posted about it
Wakahula
in the
was playing
Discord
it, yeah.
and was like,
Yeah.
"Yeah, this game came out," and then it's like I don't think I've heard about it since then. Did people like Terra Nil? You said you liked that. I don't know.
I did like it, and, you know, I only played it because Jeff showed it off at G3, and, yeah, I don't know. I struggle with this category because I don't play mobile games. I struggle with Honkai Star Rail winning as well because, yes, you can play it on mobile, but really it's like a PC game that they just ported to mobile. That's like saying Fortnite's a mobile game.
Is that true for Terra Nil though too? Like that's on PC.
I don't know. It might be. It's a
It
Netflix
is.
game, so maybe. And even though it doesn't
It's
really
got a
matter,
better
Hades.
review on iOS, but it is on PC.
Oh yeah, then yeah, it's Sod Terra Nil. Then I'd play that on PC.
Hmm.
I'll go with Monster Hunter. See, yeah, I don't know the other two
Give me
games.
Honky Tonk Stars or
Yeah,
whatever the
you
hell.
can have that. Yeah,
I'll take Honky Rails,
Hunk if you like Star Rails. Yeah.
Honky Tonk Woman Rails. I don't know. ARVR is next. We got Gran Turismo 7, Horizon Call of the Mountain, Humanity, Resident Evil Village VR mode, and Synapse.
This is the category where everyone that bought a PSVR 2 remembers that Sony forgot about it and didn't put any other games out since
Wild
the
that
launch.
there's 2 PSVR 2 games on this though, huh?
3, Humanity is a PSVR 2 game as well.
Oh, for real?
Uh,
Okay. That's how much I know.
and yeah, Synapse I think you can get on PSVR, but I think it's also on
All right, so
Quest.
we can bin those off, right? No, it's not.
What's Synapse?
Is that big? Was that a big game?
Yeah, I think it was. I think Synapse was really well received.
Yeah. We're not,
It's you know,
we're
yeah,
not big VR
you know.
boys.
It's another PS5 game. So
Are
that
all
yeah,
of these
so
these are like
all
all
of these are
PSVR 2
PS5
games.
games. They are, yeah.
Damn.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, this was the shooter with the crazy colors.
Yeah, it looked cool, right?
Yeah, it did look cool.
Like telekinesis and stuff. But I don't know. I've not heard anyone mention these games.
I feel like
Other
it's
than
GT7.
Humanity, I don't. I think if you're gonna pick one, you pick something that can only be in VR.
I don't know, but if the best game is, I don't know. I'm gonna guess GT7. That's my guess.
Okay, I'm gonna go with Humanity. Even though there is a flat version, I think it probably plays best in VR.
Okay. Okay. There we go.
Irrespective of platform, even though they're all only on PSVR.
Yeah, right. It's how it fell this year, I guess, right? All right, we're gonna go. Next up is best action game. So best game focused on combat. Armored Core 7, Fires of Rubicon, Dead Island 2. I forgot Dead Island 2 came out this year.
Me too, and Ghost Runner 2. I forgot that game
Totally
came out
forgot that
too.
came out. Yeah, Ghost Runner 2, Hi-Fi Rush, and Remnant 2, another game I forgot came out. My guess is it's either Armored Core or Hi-Fi Rush, right?
That would be my guess. Yeah, I'm surprised we've waited this long to see Armored Core. To be honest,
I feel like that game did not hit the way I thought it was going to, especially because it seems like it was generally pretty well received. But I think it was another one that just was a victim of it being an overstuffed year. And like there was not as much incentive for you to take a risk on something that you might not have tried, right? Traditionally, right? Because I mean, like looking at it, it's got a, overwhelmingly positive on
yeah,
Steam. It
got an
was
88 on PC on Metacritic.
That's pretty
Pretty well
good.
received. Yeah,
I mean, that's
that's
not
the
that's
problem. It's pretty good, but it's not good
yeah. By
enough
this
to
year's
get you up
standards,
to
it's
that.
fucking
Yeah,
it's just not enough.
you
Right?
got to score at least a 90 to get into the game of the year category, as we found.
Which is pretty sick. Great year.
Yeah.
Great year for releases, at least, right? I'm gonna say Armored Core. It's like the only fucking category it was nominated in. People love From Software. This game was reviewed well. I think the people that liked it, I think will show up for it.
Okay, I'm going with Hi-Fi Rush
I think
because I
that's
think
probably the better answer in
it's a
retrospect,
phenomenal
but
game.
I've already said it. So you take your point on that one. Okay,
Wow,
next up we
action
got
adventure has a wide reach of genre.
yeah. Next up we got action adventure. We got some good games on here. Alan Wake 2, Marvel Spider-Man 2, Resident Evil 4, Star Wars Jedi Survivor, and The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom are games in this category. I think I kind of am leaning between two on this one. I think I
Mhm.
could see Zelda cleaning up in this one because I think it's actually the best one in the category. And I also think I could see Spider Man cleaning up in this one because of the same reason I said earlier, which is that it's not going to get awards in other categories, but a lot of people really liked it and are going to want to give it an award somewhere. And I could see this being the one that it picks up.
I think it's Tears of the Kingdom. You look at the definition for the category, which is the best action adventure game combining combat with traversal and puzzle solving. That basically is Tears of the Kingdom. It's a giant puzzle that you're solving at all
Yeah.
times and how to traverse the land. So I think for me, I give it to Tears of the Kingdom. I'd be surprised if it doesn't get it.
I think the only way it doesn't is if voters have that in their mind, where they're like, we want to give Spider Man something. Because on traversal, you're not beating Spider Man. That is the best traversal in like any video game. You know, what video
How's the
game
puzzle and the combat? Does that match up with everything else?
puzzles? I would definitely say no. I think combat, your mileage may vary. There are some people who are like, it's button mashy, and they mean that as an insult. And there's some people who are like, it's button mashy, and they mean that as a positive, right? So, like, I think you could
Yeah.
argue the same thing about Tears of the Kingdom. I think there's a lot of people that are like, the Zelda combat is not inspired
Oh,
in the way.
totally. I think the Star Wars combat's phenomenal, though. Like,
Right.
it
But
really, it
I'm
really
with
is
you on
where it kind of where it lands.
puzzles and traversal, it does though, right? Like it's like the
Yeah,
whole game is a
absolutely.
puzzle, and the building was such a major traversal. You build
Oh,
more of
even
a
just like
ship.
how the number of times I forgot that I could go through the ceiling, and then when
Mhm.
I figured it out, I felt like a genius for
Yeah.
solving that puzzle. I was like, "Oh my god, yes!"
Mm. Give me
But
Tears of the
then I
Kingdom.
okay, and then I was gonna say I don't know what Alan Wake does because neither of us have played it. I might really change the game, you
Eh,
know.
I don't think so. I don't think this is the one it wins, personally. I've not heard people talk about the combat as the thing, right? It's like the atmosphere, the art direction, the story, the scares, the anime, like it's not the gameplay and that shit, which I think is
Mhm.
what you're looking at here. That's another one I feel like I might regret, but we'll see. Next up is Best RPG. We got Baldur's Gate 3, we got Final Fantasy 16, we got Lies of P, we got Sea of Stars, we got Starfield in the only category it was nominated in. I'm gonna guess Baldur's Gate 3.
Yeah, me too. I really want Starfield to win something,
Me too.
but it's not getting it. There's no chance.
I
Not while
think it's too
Baldur's Gate 3 is
polarizing.
sniffing around.
I think people who didn't even play Baldur's Gate 3 or like didn't even like finish it are gonna give it best RPG just because of what it
Like,
is.
I haven't finished it, you haven't finished it, but we can look at that game and go, "This is a better role play experience than Starfield
It
is."
just is, right? Like it's like, yeah, of course, right? Like it's just like the deepest, craziest RPG that's come out in who knows how long. Next up is best fighting game. We
Mhm.
got God of Rock. Didn't know that was a game. Mortal Kombat 1, Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl 2, Pocket Bravery, and Street Fighter 6. I think it's between Mortal Kombat and Street Fighter 6, right?
Oh, I thought you were gonna say it's between Mortal Kombat and Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl 2.
So you said uh Street Fighter had a 92, right?
Yes, Street Fighter 6 is in some of the top I think it's the top 5 games of the year if you discount the remakes, which includes the Resident Evil
Right.
4 remake.
So I mean Mortal Kombat quite a bit below that. It did come out more recently, and I think Mortal Kombat generally has like, broader appeal because of its single player like story that it brings in people like me that are not like looking to get sweaty with a fighting game and just kind of want to like tool around and have a
Is
little
there no
fun.
story in Street Fighter 6? I thought that was a big thing with Street Fighter 6 that they were
There's
bringing
the
out
big
this big
story
story mode.
mode, but there's not a narrative, right? Whereas like in Mortal Kombat, there's a story in every game, right? You're playing
Yeah.
through a Saturday morning cartoon, ostensibly, right? And it's like, I don't know that. I don't know. That is a unique differentiator for that series. And I think it is something that makes it appeal to, like I don't play Street Fighter, but I play Mortal Kombat, right? And it's like, does that I don't know, right? Do you factor that in? And are there a bunch of people that vote for Mortal Kombat that maybe don't vote for fighting games historically, but they like Mortal Kombat, so they vote for that? Or is this one of those more niche categories where people sit out and then Street Fighter wins because the people that know what they're talking about and fuck with fighting games are like, Street Fighter's the game this year? I don't know. What do you think?
I think I'm going to Street Fighter. I think it got snubbed for Game of the Year. Looking at the ratings, it arguably, if you're looking at it from a completely clinical scientific perspective, it should have been there. But I think it gets this category. It was seemingly more well received than Mortal Kombat was. I don't know enough about fighting games to ignore experts in it, so I'm going to look at what they've rated it and go with Street Fighter 6 because of that.
God, this is another really tough one. I'm not sure.
Watch us both be
Mm,
wrong, and it really is God of Rock that is the best fighting
That'd be
game.
so funny.
2023.
I'm gonna go with my gut on this one and say Mortal Kombat 1.
Okay, Mortal Kombat 1.
Next up, we got Best Family Game. We got Disney Illusion Island, Party Animals, Pikmin 4, Sonic Superstars, and Super Mario Brothers Wonder. I'm going to give it to Super Mario Brothers Wonder because it's the
Mm,
best game in this category, and I think that will probably be where it gets its flowers when it gets snubbed in the other categories.
I really think it's getting art direction. I really do. Like, it's just phenomenal.
That would be cool. Best sim/strategy game. We have Advance Wars 1 and 2, Reboot Camp, City Skylines 2, Company of Heroes 3, Fire Emblem Engage, and Pikmin 4. I'm going to give it to Pikmin 4. I think that Pikmin 4 was really well received. There are a lot of very intellectual people that love that game and had a great time with it and are going to be upset that it didn't make it in the other categories, so they're going to give it its flowers here.
I am going with City Skylines 2. We've been waiting for it for a very long time. It's finally here. Seemingly a great sequel. And it's a base for them to build upon for the next decade, like they did with the previous game. So I'm
Very
excited
nice.
about that.
Next up, we got next up we got best sports/racing game. We've got EA Sports Football Club 24. That's gonna take us a while to get used to.
FIFA
F
24.
It's not FIFA. We're not EA Sports FC 24. F1 23, Forza Motorsport. What was I just turned into Coach Z from Homestar Runner there for a second? Forza Motorsports, Hot Wheels Unleashed 2 Turbocharged, and The Crew Motorfest. I'm gonna guess Forza Motorsport.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, 100%.
Everybody loves Forza.
And didn't the CEO of 1010 just become head of Xbox Game Studios as well?
Yeah, I think so, right? Big week for them.
Mm,
Next up, we got Best Multiplayer. We got Baldur's Gate 3, Diablo 4, Party Animals, Street Fighter 6, and Super Mario Bros. Wonder. I'm
come on,
gonna
it's Baldur's Gate, right?
I'm gonna guess Baldur's Gate 3 because Diablo 4, I think, could have won this, but then there was all that drama with season 1. Is that left a sour taste in people's mouths?
I don't think the multiplayer is good enough. I don't like the way the leveling works in that game, and we'll talk about that when we come to the Game of the Year because it's a really strange way that they do it. And if a Nintendo game wins best multiplayer, it's only because of the couch co-op and not for any other reason.
Right. Would be cool to see Party Animals win, though.
It would.
Uh,
I just don't think it does anything that's new, special.
Next up, we got Best Adaptation. We got Castlevania Nocturne, which I keep forgetting to watch that. Got to check that out. Gran Turismo, The Last of Us, the Super Mario Brothers movie, and Twisted Metal. I mean, it's The Last of Us, right?
Poor Five Nights at Freddy's movie, just not even getting a look
Not
in
even
here.
nominated.
Yeah,
Oof,
that's rough.
a
You
little
know,
rough.
Twisted Metal made it up here. Peacock
Twisted Metal, which
games.
you and Max didn't even know came out.
That's
Okay,
because it's not available in the UK. I looked it up. It's on Peacock. We
no,
don't
it's only
get
on.
that here.
Okay, so for our last category, we have most anticipated game. Of course, the sequel to Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, right?
Yeah.
That's the next one. So what we got is Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, Hades 2, Like a Dragon, Infinite Wealth, Star Wars Outlaws, and Tekken 8.
It's Final Fantasy VII,
It's
but
Final
I
Fantasy
hope
VII
it's for me,
Rebirth,
it's
right?
Star Wars.
Yeah, I think Star Wars is my answer, and I think for a lot of people that's probably. But again, I am really excited for Rebirth. So
Everyone's really excited for Rebirth, you know,
personal,
those running giant running chicken things that everyone's on the back of.
yeah,
Everyone was really excited about that.
we're very excited about our chocobos.
Yeah.
All right, so we got a good list here. Enough difference that we shouldn't tie up.
Yeah. Well,
Couple
and
ways to do it.
I'll put it in the Discord if anyone wants to have a look at the picture, and you can kind of compare it with what you think is going to be the winners. But man, there's most categories were different. There's a few we line up in, like you said, but it's going to be an interesting one.
Yeah, I'm excited to see how this one turns out. I think it's you know for better and worse. The Game Awards is definitely something that you and I look forward to every year, right? As much as there's a lot of stuff that we don't love about it, I think we have some fun with it every year. So I'm excited to tune in and see which one of us ends up on top for our predictions this year.
Yeah, yeah.
Your last
We're
chance
not
at glory.
screening it. We're just not doing that again.
No,
Goes
you got
on
to go
too
to
long.
sleep. We'll talk about it the next day. How's that sound?
Yeah, yeah. That sounds good to me.
All right. Well, you know what, guys? This one went a little long, so I am going to do our housekeeping right now. So thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of the FlipScreen Games podcast. This episode is brought to you by our Patreon producers for the month of November. They are, of course, Arnold J. Rimmer, Christopher Valens, Earth Visitor, Gabriel Hasselmeyer, a.k.a. Sobe, Pilkey, Snackigo, Ty the Dude, and Wakahula. Thank you all so much for your support over on patreon.com/FlipScreenGames and for your endless patience for me reading your names at the end of the episode. If you want to go and show your support just like they did, head over to flipscreen.games. That's our website where you will find links to our Patreon, our Discord, all the places that you can get involved right into the show or keep the conversation rolling between episodes. You can find links to all that and much more. Flipscreen.games. That's the website again. Go over there, click on some stuff, however you choose to get involved and show your support. We thank you for tuning in to another episode of Flipscreen Games Podcast. For the crew, I've been Pete. He's been Steve. We'll see you next week.